Hi, welcome to Rumbo Minero. I'm Jorge Leon, and together with Cesar Campos, we're going to create the next program. How are you, Cesar?
Good to have you here, Jorge.
Hey, Cesar and TV friends, this week we're meeting up. Well, the legislature ends soon. Nothing about the reinfo will be modified. We will have reinfo for a while. It's a shame that we continue to mistreat formal mining in this way. And we hope that in the next legislative term, we can enact a Mape Law, but not the Frankenstein they are constructing, right? I mean, truly, I believe that Fernan Altuve was very right in saying these are just patches and we need a mining code.
Without a doubt, and there hasn't been enough time, moreover, to debate broadly, technically and precisely, and especially tied to constitutional terms, the new mining law for artisanal and small-scale operations, the well-known law, Mape. We hope that with the commencement of the second legislative term, Jorge, we can discuss that matter. We will have significant, indeed, guests like those. The congresswoman Diana Gonzales from Avanza País, representing Arequipa, is additionally part of the commission. Energy and Mines Commission, and also Dr. Humberto Abanto, a well-known jurist, who is furthermore an excellent political analyst, and we are going to talk about whether there is a real desire from the government to conclude the reinfo issue.
Before moving on to the main mining news in the country, I wanted to show you our social media channels that will be displayed in a few minutes. Certainly, you have the option to follow these social media platforms without any subscription fees. To have the television program, we have LinkedIn, Facebook, all the social networks, subscribe to them. Also, let me mention that you have the Rumbo Minero magazine available for free at www.rumbominero.com, where they can access all the detailed information every 45 days. We are now joined, as we announced, by Congresswoman Diana Gonzales from Avanza País. We are going to talk about Congress and the politicization of the Mape Law. Congresswoman, how are you? Welcome.
Very well, thank you very much for the invitation.
First of all, let's go ahead and take a look at this report specifically about the topic.
Reinfo Reloaded. This is how the law for the formalization of small-scale and artisanal mining, known as the Mape Law, was named. Due to its provisions that may lead to higher levels of informality, diminished environmental regulations, and alterations in the tax system. One of the key aspects is the establishment of the National Registry of Artisanal Mining Producers, RENAPMAT, to replace RINFO with simplified registration criteria. This change aims to streamline the process for miners, making it easier for illegal activities to enter the formalization process. Additionally, criminal immunity is granted to registered illegal miners, and the possibility is open to effect formal concessions through mining easements. Another worrying aspect is that the deadline for declaring the expiration of mining concessions has been shortened from 30 years to 10 years, while tax and financial incentives are being provided to artisanal miners, creating an unequal treatment compared to other productive activities. It is necessary to promote a new mining code with comprehensive legislation that not only simplifies and encourages formalization, but also opens the door to mining in favor of investment, competitiveness, and sustainability.
Being already with the very interesting report, by the way, while accompanying Congresswoman Gonzales, we intended to inquire about the general consensus among specialists regarding the initial evaluation issued by the Energy and Mines Commission of Congress. Precisely, concerning the new Mape legislation, it carries serious risks and is meant to function as an extension in practice of the inclusion of perpetuation. In other words, what's being talked about, and it can be seen in the new law map, is that there's a feeling outside that indicates there's something like a current to continue reinforcing, isn't it? Or something like that. So, well, this situation is quite perilous since ultimately we were unable to figure out the solution to properly formalize the illegal miners, aren't they?
Yes, indeed, we did receive a preliminary text that I described as a reloaded reinforcement, a true legislative facade put forward for discussion and consideration of what would have been the approval of that draft that was not approved in the first session when we began the debate on this matter. And, a text that, first of all, did not define what formal mining was. It was essential to deduce from the other ideas what constituted formal mining, while illegal mining was characterized by miners working in forbidden areas, the informal in a regulated area, and the formal in a regulated area with the initiation of proceedings. And the procedure was ID, tax ID, and coordinates. That's simple, that's straightforward. There were numerous criticisms from certain political factions regarding the ruling. During the initial debate, it was evident that the left-wing factions expressed their support for the decision. In the second session on this topic, I found it quite remarkable that the Commission has put in a significant effort to seek out some form of consensus among the parties involved and improve that text. We have already found a definition of formal mining. I also think that important adjustments need to be made to this second text.
In this specific context, the leader of the Commission, Congressman Paul Gutierrez, has been disclosed by several media sources, has received visits from representatives of informal mining throughout this time. Those who proceed without hesitation to his office, and well, it's evident that they send out certain levels of interest to facilitate incorporation in the project. How do you, Congressman, detect it? Because it would be interesting for the public to know that, in order to stop any bias. Anyway, notice how they have compiled up to 6 projects, which truly lengthens the debate considerably. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, the President of the Commission has proposed a legislative initiative that is compiled within this text. I don't think there is an obvious interest, and I have told him personally. When I have been the president of an ordinary committee, have not dictated my own initiatives because it was clear that I would have some preference for...
An open conflict of interest.
Total, right? Total. I believe that during these meetings, he should have acted differently, and I also criticized him for that back then, because he indicated that since December 2nd of last year, the working groups were open for discussion on the new Mape Law. He should have invited all the involved parties. It's an extremely complex issue, and catch everything that everyone says. I think also that one thing I'm critical of in this new text is, for instance, the use of overly complex language. The artisanal miner currently shows, let's say, 25 tons daily, right? That's what an artisanal miner does. That has nothing artisanal about it in the first place. So what is the reason they plan to increase to 50 tons per day for artisanal mining? This is a critique of the new document I possess. Among others, the registration process in this new registry has indeed been changed. But in the matter of alluvial mining, an incredible ease is maintained because for the others, it's okay. The requirements are presented. They are reviewed and you enter the registry. Then more checks are done, marking the start or restart of activities. For alluvial mining, it is simply the registration. And I did it on purpose. The registration is already done. When the registration is there, you can already, in order to engage in the activity, don't you agree? Therefore, I believe these vital data require further deliberation and examination from various perspectives.
Now, Congressman, the focus in our discussions around this mining program is greatly emphasized and analyzed. That, unfortunately, there are various signals, from Congress about their unwillingness to lay a genuine formalization document on the table. Correct? We are also talking about informal workers who want to formalize, as the goal is not to attack them without providing a way out. Rather, it is the opposite. The idea is to provide them with a solution, but also, let's see which ones do not want to formalize in any way, right? The most radical ones, and well, they are within informality, and they already know what happens with that, right? That's what the law is for. But there is one part that does want to be formalized. And the guidelines are ambiguous. Furthermore, it's not just that they are unclear, but they are constantly putting patches on it. Last week, Fernan Altuve told us that it's unbelievable that a code of ethics, something more comprehensive, isn't created instead of just patching things up. Every Congress that comes will say, well, we are going to pass the law number so-and-so and the law number so-and-so, the REINFO 2, the REINFO 3, or the Mape 4, right? And the truth is that, you see, this doesn't lead to anything. What do you think is the answer? What can we say about the entire subject of illegal mining,
Last year, during the debate on REINFO, I opposed this extension that allowed the executive to extend the deadline for the one time. Don't you think? I really believe. A long time ago, the executive, especially the ministry, needed to stop being just a simple crisis administrator and start taking responsibility for the issue. That's why we granted them the powers. I opposed the issue from the very beginning because I believe that everything, absolutely everything, must go through the ministry. Because what will happen now if the Mape Law is not approved in Congress? The executive, which could effortlessly bring the rainfall to a close, has already been mentioned by the minister that they are evaluating a possible extension of not 6 months, it could be 1 or 2 months. What will happen after those 2 months? The miners will return to Congress. They will not go to the ministry in the middle of an electoral process, on the eve of an electoral campaign. Thus, I believe that this is a matter that is also political. However, while this remains true, significant emphasis needs to be placed on ensuring thorough analysis to identify a technical criterion that is truly reliable and enduring. Of the difficulty of this topic and
However,
to dodge
I apologize
these
for
band-aids.
interrupting, but the ministers are somewhat under threat as well, since the most recent minister, Romulo Mucho, introduced a Mape Law that not perfect, but there were at least some advancements, right? And he argued that he presented it very late, and so it had to be removed.
Well, not exactly. Let's remember that the minister will be joining the cabinet in the month of February. He recognized that upon entering the ministry, there was completely nothing in relation to the Mape Law at all. His predecessor, Oscar Vera, was rewarded with the management of Petroperú during Mucho's administration. When Mucho joined, he knew perfectly well that he had to send this project to Congress. And he sent it almost at the end of the legislative session. From the beginning, we all recognized this, and I mentioned it to the Commission's president. You knew very well that this subject required a ruling, and we could have begun the debate in August while gathering contributions. Make sure to reach out to all parties involved, convene working groups, hold decentralized meetings, and make decisions on this crucial issue in a timely manner. Don't postpone until the last
Okay, there is a timing issue, but regarding what was presented, why wasn't work done on that?
Because at that time, the priority was the expiration of reinfo in December. When he presents the Mape Law, it has already been postponed for this legislative session, considering that a 6-month extension had been granted. I believe so. The option that clearly has managed to achieve the greatest consensus, however, the initiatives that were put forward, the draft report from the Commission's president was almost an indefinite extension of the RINFO. Later, there were 5-year, 3-year, and 2-year initiatives for the RINFO, with 6 months being the shortest possible duration.
So were we going for the least bad?
Well, it's that they hand out or Congress's consensus.
Of course.
I personally said, okay, 3 months, we are in recess. No single authority will hold ultimate decision-making power, as all outcomes will undergo review by the ministry to avoid the possibility of being sent back to Congress once the ministry's term extension concludes. That position did not have consensus. The consensus was to reduce it to 6 months. And what the first text of the Mape Law shows is that these 6 months were indeed a major defeat for those miners. Informal or perhaps even illegal, because what they really wanted was an indefinite extension. And what this record did in its first text was an indefinite extension of the reinfo.
As you've made observations and conceptual annotations similarly, so too have I done. For example, the management of artisanal mining, I wonder, Congressman Gonzales, if you have any observation on this random concept that also applies to the practice of ancestral mining. Here with Iván Arenas, we have developed, even with guests from a long time ago. Well, that is entirely ethereal and does not have a landing, since it is clear that an ancestral practice needs to be recognized when it comes into play. Thanks to the ILO Convention 169, anthropological and historical research proving that they have been embedded in that practice for more than 100, 200, or 300 years. That is not demonstrated. Communities, if we are to be honest, are formed unexpectedly in the practice of ancestral mining, and they proclaim, I am ancestral because just look at my testimony. Look, hey, I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that situation, but I'd love to hear your feedback.
The second text removes the definition of traditional mining, maintains the artisanal, which again, my criticism is from 25 to 50 tons. And in the first debate, we had the participation of the President of the Assembly of Regional Governments. He made a request for the regional governments to once more engage through their respective directorates or managements in the formalization process. I believe that statistically, regional managements or directions have shown that they have not had the greatest impact on the formalization process. And for that reason, I also critique the second text because it discusses decentralized offices of the MINEM so that they can evaluate the Well, the documentation required for the formalization process, as the regulation clearly indicates that all these files are to be entered in a digital format. As a result, the MINIM can analyze these procedures calmly from its main headquarters, maintaining a sense of peace and stability.
There is no need, therefore,
No
for
need
decentralized
for that.
directions
No,
from the MINIM
I
there.
honestly don't think so, because they will later claim a lack of skills and competencies. Due to a lack of personnel or concerning inaction on the part of management or regional directors that has occurred throughout all these years of failed reinforcements.
Very brief, and thanking him for being with us, eh? The dismissal of the Deputy Minister of Energy and Mines, Henry Luna, drew a lot of attention. Precisely at the center of this storm occurring between the Mape and the Rainfall, what is your assessment of this issue?
Yes, it also caught my attention because the Deputy Minister has been accompanying the Minister in every session he has participated in with the Energy and Mines Commission. And I must say that it has also piqued my interest. Mr. Gallo has shown an exceptionally proactive level of participation in the Ministry of Energy and Mines.
Agreed. Very well. The time has run out. We greatly appreciate your attendance at Rumbo Minero today, and we eagerly anticipate your return in the future to keep updated on the ongoing work progress. Your presence makes a valuable contribution to our community. And, and we believe that, well, this is very important for the Founding Fathers to achieve a consensus. Yes, but it must be in accordance with the law, right? Your statement is a little unclear right now.
A clear and organized process that fits well within the nation's institutions.
Exactly. Thank you very much for being here. We will take a commercial break and return shortly.
Do you want to position your brand and expand your client base in the mining sector? Participate in the most influential mining magazine in America and have your brand reach directly to mining companies, contractors, and the main decision makers in the mining sector. Maintaining a robust international multi-platform presence, we engage with 2.7 million individuals through a diverse range of channels, including television programs, websites, and tailored social media content. Inquire about our annual advertising packages and advertise in Rumbo Minero magazine, your best business tool in the mining sector. Invest wisely. Invest with the leaders. More information at www.rumbominero.com.
Okay, joining us in our America Mining segment is José Gonzáles, who is currently in our studios. Thank you for being here. Hey, I'm the international editor of Rumbo Minero. José, how's it going?
Good, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be back.
That's right. José, tell us a bit about this topic. What were the agreements in London and why have rare earths been key? Let me briefly summarize the question for you to provide further details.
It has just been announced that the results of the second round of negotiations between China and the United States are now available. During the 90-day period that the two countries have given themselves to establish the final number of tariffs, the announcements from London and Washington are not very clear. It is not clear to us what exactly has been agreed upon. This morning, President Trump has generated additional noise on his social media accounts. From what was expected, stating that the agreement has been 55% tariffs for China, 10% for the United States, to which the Chinese government has not commented, and the Secretary of Commerce from London has said that they will not return to previous levels. That is to say, the levels of 30 and 10 will not be modified. We will see how the noise ends. Why have rare earths been key? It was believed that rare earth elements played a crucial role in defense, especially in submarines, which are vital for national security, and satellites, and missiles. Yet they are indispensable today for the automotive industry. All the systems in a modern car rely on rare earth magnets for their functionality, making them essential components in contemporary vehicles. They consume less electricity and do not react to temperature. And a major crisis erupted. As the supply of rare earths was dwindling, the automobile assembly lines in the United States started to come to a standstill. Consequently, the president had no choice but to concede and make a trip to London. President Trump said this morning that rare earths are coming as a precondition to the agreements. Lifting the ban. They are considering reciprocal measures for Chinese students' visas. However, the current assessment indicates that we have not reached that stage yet. The great pressure from China will continue to be rare earths. There are rare earths in which China holds 99.99% of control, and there is no way that American production can replace it. First gesture. Export licenses for rare earths have been approved within the last 48 hours, and China has recently taken delivery of its inaugural Boeing aircraft following a temporary halt. The delivery of planes, 200 planes that it had purchased in the past, the profile is better. However, it is still not clear. The forward perspective.
Extremely interesting point, Jose. I wanted to ask you, with just over 10 days left until the inauguration of MINPRO 2025, the 7th Confamine Mining Conference conducted successfully. Hey, we have a social technical forum and we would appreciate it if you could indicate who is involved and what themes they will discuss.
That's right, Cesar. 2 weeks before MINPRO 2025 Confamina 7, which is the most important mining business event in the country. It will be on Tuesday, June 24th and Wednesday, June 25th. We are convening a significant social technical forum at the Lima Convention Center in San Borja, focusing on discussions related to reinfo, specifically addressing issues surrounding informal and illegal mining activities. Let's talk about the formalization of mining, expansion of territories, and building connections across social divides. Iván Arenas is now the moderator presiding over this forum, heading towards mining, a great addition to our team. And they will be Carlos Herrera Descalzi, former Minister of Energy and Mines, Luis Miguel Inchaustegui, former Minister of Energy and Mines, Cecilia Hulcarima, President of the National Society of Small-Scale Mining, and Paul Gutierrez, President of the Commission of Energy and Mines of the Congress of the Republic.
José Gonzáles, thank you very much as always and welcome back to Peru. Everything is ready to prepare for the Expo Mineros y Proveedores MINPRO Peru 2025. If you wish to join the discussion, simply visit minproperu.com for more details on how to participate. And you can register for the talks for free. We will be at the Convention Center in Lima, in San Borja. So now you know. Thank you very much, Jose.
Delighted.
Well, I want to remind you not to forget about the magazine Rumbo Minero, www.rumbominero.com. If you go to the website, you will find all the information there that you can access daily, but you can also download the virtual magazine where all the topics and the most important suppliers in the mining sector are featured. We will now have a commercial break and come back soon. Currently, we find ourselves in the studio alongside Dr. Humberto Abanto, a renowned criminal lawyer, as everyone is already aware. Let's have a discussion with him on whether the government is capable of effectively managing illegal mining. Dr. Abanto, how are you?
Very well, thank God. Thank you for being here.
Doctor, following a 30-year halt on all formal and informal mining operations in Patas, according to the figures from the BCR, we would be losing a lot of money. Well, we believe it has been abruptly truncated, suggesting a forceful manner. But everything's cut off, right? It's like this, what we want, kill a little. The issue at hand is the issue of illegal mining. Our objective is clear: halt illegal mining activities immediately, but we must also work towards effectively regulating and controlling it. Do you think that the government has handled things in Patas appropriately?
No, I have a very critical view of the matter, since what it indicates is a doctor who, when dealing with an infection, opts to amputate as a response. I believe that no one would accept such a treatment from a doctor. The thing is, the government has wanted to replace operational intelligence work and criminal investigation, and including fighting in cities, to organized crime that manifests as drug trafficking, illegal mining, which is how one should work. He has wanted to replace it with a brutal decision. I am going to cut all economic activity. What does he think will happen to the government when time passes and this situation prolongs?
Although our subject matter, Dr. Abanto, pertains to the government's reply, let's delve a little deeper into a topic you're familiar with. This also weakened the state, just as it had been affected by reforms. Due to this progressive ideological infiltration, by the way, from many sectors that with tremendous patience have the response capacity has been precisely diminished, and it's not just about repression, have changed the judicial system, have penetrated all spheres of internal security, even within the armed forces themselves as external security. It's amusing how often the caviar elites and communists label me a terrorist when in reality we are simply defending democratic values. It's interesting to see how our actions are often misunderstood by those who don't share our beliefs. What have these people really done to reduce the state's capacity to its minimum expression? Let's not even talk about the government.
Well, my thesis is that what has been done is to inoculate the Peruvian state with the AIDS virus. The AIDS virus is known for its ability to weaken and ultimately destroy the immune system. So one cannot defend themselves? What have they done? To begin with, look at what has happened with the police. The police are afraid to use their weapons because if not, if there is a confrontation and they die, as a brilliant former minister and ex-parliamentarian would say, the criminals die. The police are not dying. Instead, they are under suspicion of being part of a deadly group known as a death squad. And they are being prosecuted for that. They were precisely the intelligence operations, more criminal investigation, more urban combat. That was the response. This was deactivated in 2016, when the tail of the death squad first came into being. The Divincos reduced their activities combating organized crime, but still remained engaged in addressing the issue. And the DVAC grew, just in case. Organized crime and criminal gangs multiplied during that period, which is when the Peruvian state supposedly spent the most on the fight against organized crime. When it comes to armed forces, our first step has been to disarm them completely. And second, we block them with processes of crimes against humanity. So, what soldier is going to want to go to close this issue, or what police officer is going to intervene if they know what the result will be? What happened to Prado Ravines? Or what has happened to General Rivero? Or what has happened to so many other military personnel? No one. And what is going to happen then with the citizen? If the white blood cells, our leukocytes, fail to function properly, the mechanism will be compromised. Infections will devour us. This is the main point of the discussion.
Agreed. At this moment, what is your opinion regarding the government's decision after observing these 13 regrettable, 13 lives lost in Patas? A, revoke 1/4 out of 25 reinforcements that were not, let's say, in order. Why not practice freedom universally? Do it in every place.
Let's see. Let's take it step by step. Every individual is entitled to fair and just administrative proceedings, ensuring due process of law in administrative matters. The government cannot make a decision and decree, I cancel all suspended reinforcements because the reasons and suspensions are not the same in all cases. In other words, we need to clarify that. Secondly, the first problem we need to understand is that, I would like to make you see this. The Marxist left in Peru understood the workings of the economic model quite well. And he realized that mining is the driving force of the economic model because Peru is a mining country. And he finally managed to enshrine this in that absurd slogan that won an election. Water yes, gold no. As if mining and other activities were mutually exclusive. This has cost Peru, meaning that we all are still watching the figures. We are focusing on sales in souls with no consideration for export volumes. We export less. We receive more money because there is a price boom, but we export less. That is to say, they have stifled mining. Today, as we experience this surge in informal miners, rather than utilizing these informal miners to counteract this trend, promote mining to enhance prosperity in Peru through the development of its mining industry. We are locking ourselves into a war that pits formal mining against informal miners who might necessarily want to turn into outlaws. There is a weapon there that relates to economic policy, which is not just simple economics, nor mere legality. It is politics. Moving the country forward requires reversing this belief that mining is bad, which is being overturned by market forces. And instead of CAPI to profit from this, we are choosing the most misguided route could potentially spark a social crisis, leading us down a dangerous path towards a possible explosion of incalculable consequences.
A social explosion, especially now in the electoral environment we are experiencing. Elections are coming. What is your view, Dr. Abanto, on how these illegal actors will behave and operate around the candidacies and political participation in these elections?
That's why, for me, the first thing is to rescue the informal workers. I mean, it can't be that the media outlet says, horror, the informal workers are seeking political representation, because the informal workers have every right to have political representation. In other words, that discourse of excluding the informal workers in a nation where 75% of the workforce operates in the informal sector. Incredible discourse.
I think we should work on reducing that gap a bit too, because occasionally there is a somewhat defined boundary concerning the issue.
However, by bringing informal workers into the fold, the issue of illegality would diminish in significance compared to the solution we are suggesting. We have the ability to resolve this. A significant concern is the infiltration of political organizations by illegal miners posing as informal miners. This situation must be closely monitored and addressed accordingly. But what worries me the most, and I'll tell you right now, is that I think we're going to have elections the year 2028.
How so?
Simple. The candidates presenting themselves are openly radical. Mr. Lopez Aliaga doesn't engage in dialogue with anyone, and his responses are very harsh towards those who criticize him. And Philip, at present, there is a scarcity of leftist candidates with Mr. Alanoca aiming to revive their presence in Bolivia. He believes that Mr. Evo Morales holds significance in Bolivia and suggests seeking the opinion of the local population on this matter. We're going to have a Congress with no fewer than 12 parties. If a president who knows how to dialogue is not elected, who can build consensus, and who can be capable of overcoming the myth created by the champagne left in Peru, that political negotiation is the same as political wheeling and dealing, that government will not be able to sustain itself. Today Peru has, we return to the issue of informality, an informal parliamentary republic. This is no longer a presidential regime. Mrs. Boluarte is not supported by herself, and the system is not sustained by her. Mrs. Boluarte is supported by the Congress of the Republic. The incoming president will find themselves in the exact same scenario. And if he lacks the ability to establish some mutual agreements, that will be very precarious in a country like ours. It also harbors a strong inclination towards fratricide from both sides of our mestizaje. Then we can expect to see elections taking place in 2028. I am one of those who believes that contrary to what a large part of the political establishment holds, we must move towards a constitutional reform to fully embrace our status as a parliamentary republic. We won't have the collapses it creates. This informal parliamentary republic causing presidential vacancies and the height, plus a shakeup of the whole system that also shows up to the economy.
Thank you so much for spending time with us, Dr. Abanto. It always feels like time flies by too quickly when you're here. We truly hope to have the pleasure of seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Well, now we are going to the block on mining and public management, that Iván Arenas is going to share with us. Go ahead.
Why do we talk about the relationship between informal mining, illegal mining, and the Congress of the Republic? Why do we speculate about a potential link between illegal mining? Are there clues suggesting a connection? Informal mining and political parties represented in Congress or even in the executive branch? Is there really a connection between informal mining, illegal mining, and Peruvian politics? Everything seems to indicate yes, but it is not a new relationship. Rather, it is an absolutely old one, probably dating back a decade. We have already seen how mining leaders from different unions, some of which are prohibited and unstructured, have participated in politics, have been authorities, have been councillors, mayors. But we also see that in recent years, the Congress of the Republic has represented certain interests and specific demands of the informal mining world and also illegal. Evidently, a relationship that exists. But in this case, Congress represents. What is coming is something else. What is coming is no longer an indirect representation, but the direct involvement of some leaders in participating in politics. And when we talk about leaders, we are talking about leaders from different organizations of informal mining or those in the process of formalization. That is to say, the representation would no longer be indirect through a congressman who can be influenced, a current congressman, but in the upcoming elections, the leaders themselves would participate in politics, and we would probably have in Congress leaders who would represent the informal world or the world in the process of formalization. If not, we will call it illegal. This is one of the big questions. This is clearly a prediction for one of the outcomes we can expect in 2026 during the upcoming elections. I bid you farewell, and we'll see each other again next week.
Thank you all for joining us today. I want to express my gratitude to Cesar Campos for his continued kindness. I am Jorge Leon, and in collaboration with Cesar Campos, we have put together the Rumbo Minero program. Thanks for being a part of this journey with us. Do not forget the importance of mining for Peru. All here on the Rumbo Minero program. So we look forward to seeing you next weekend on this same channel.